Hi, Year 5. It's a tricky lesson today. I'm not going to brush over it. It is quite hard, but actually, this is really good. We've got to grips with actually understanding how we add and subtract by just doing sort of the process of it and regrouping and exchanging. So now it's really getting our brains thinking, really getting our brains buzzing, because you need to be thinking about possibilities, reasoning whether something is the right option or whether there's another option. So I anticipate that this in focus task today actually could potentially take you the whole lesson. So I don't want you to worry if you don't make it onto the guided practice or the workbook. In fact, I've actually said, don't do the work, don't do the guided practice. If you do finish this early, then you can move on to the workbook. But it might be that this actually takes you the whole lesson, so don't worry. There's no extension today. Maths teachers, I have put an extension on there for you in case you do move on. But again, this is really important, so don't rush through it. It's much more, even if you don't come to an answer, it's really important, the process that you go through. Okay, so let's have a little look at it. So we're adding and subtracting decimals again, lesson 12. And here we've got 8-digit cards. We've got a 0, a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5. Then you'll notice 6 and 7 are missing, and then it goes straight to 8 and 9. Okay, so just the 8-digit cards. And there's two things that you've got to do, two tasks. So try to make the smallest possible sum and the smallest possible difference. Now, I'm not sure quite why they've been put that way round, because to me, I would have put the sum there and the difference here. We know that sum means add. So obviously, that's what we're going to do first. We're going to start with the smallest possible sum. So we're doing this one here. Now, this is the easier of the two. I have to say this is quite a challenge. So we're going to have a look at this one together to start off with. If you think, oh, I really feel confident, I think I've really got a good understanding already, then feel free to pause the video and have a go straight away without any explanation. That would be ideal if you could, but I do understand that some of you might really struggle with that. So if you think, oh, I really don't get it, and I have had a little think about it, then don't worry, we're going to practice. But if you think, oh, I can give it a go, pause now and see. So we're just thinking about this one here, the smallest possible sum. Right, okay. So a few little helping hints and tips then. I'm not going to tell you, but I want you to have a think about it for yourself. I'm going to give you some ideas. So things to think about. What is the value of the largest column? So I want you to think about which one will show the largest value. Which column would we put it into if we wanted it to have the largest value? So we want a digit to have its largest value, okay? And then conversely, where would we place a digit if we wanted to have its smallest value? I haven't written that very well, actually. That's not very well worded. So what I mean is, if I were to place a digit and I want it to have its largest value, where would I place it? And then if I wanted it to have its smallest value, where would I place it? Talked a lot about this recently. And remember, we know what our columns are called. We've got our ones, our tenths, our hundredths, and our thousandths. So that's really important. Okay. So we're focusing on finding the smallest possible sum. Does the column you choose for each digit have each digit make a difference? Sorry, that wasn't quite worded right either. So does the column you choose make a difference for thinking about the smallest possible sum? Okay, so there's a few tips. Now, I want you to pause the video now and have a go. If you haven't done so already, have a go, see how you get on. Come back to me when you're ready. Okay, so if I'm thinking about making the smallest possible sum, this one here, in fact, I'm going to blank that other one out because that's, I don't know about you, but it's getting in my way. So I'm going to hide that out. Okay. So if I'm thinking about making the smallest possible sum, do I want a big number over in this column here, in the ones column? I don't. Let's have a quick look at this. If I've got the digit 4, for example, all right, any digit is exactly the same. I've just taken the digit 4. If I put it in this column here, the ones column, it's worth 4 whole, right? And each of these is worth 1 whole. That's what we've been working with recently, as a thousands Dean block being worth 1. So if it's in the ones column, it's worth 4 whole. If I choose to then put it, instead of the ones column, if I choose to put it in the tenths column, it's actually worth 0.4. Is that bigger than 4, or is it smaller than 4? 0.4. Right, it's smaller, isn't it? How much smaller? See if you can tell me that. How much smaller is it, 0.4 than 4? Right, well, you can see we've got our place value grid here, and we know that if we move it 1 digit to the right, it actually is 10 times smaller. So this number is 10 times smaller. And actually, I should have my 0 here, my decimal point, and my 4 here. Just put it in that column so it's nice and clear for you. And if we look at it, these are smaller, aren't they? Each of these is a tenth of one of those. So I'd need to divide one of these by 10 to get one of these. So these are obviously much smaller. They're 10 times smaller. So I've still got 4 of them, but they're 10 times smaller now. Then if we move into the hundreds column, it now, the 4 becomes 0.04. Okay. So it's now got 10 times smaller. Again, these tens Deans that we are using for our hundredths, they're 10 times smaller than this, which is 10 times smaller than this. So this Dean here is 100 times smaller than that one. And then we move into our thousandths column, and we've done the same thing again. We've made it 10 times smaller again, so it's 0.004. All right, so yes, it does make a really big difference where we choose to put our digit. If I put it in the ones column, it's worth 4. If I put it in the thousandths column, it's only worth 0.004, which is 10, 100, 1,000 times smaller, which makes a big, big difference, doesn't it? So if I were to think about the number, if I were to think about this number here, okay, if I've got 9,215, okay, the 9 in my number is worth 9,000, whereas the 5 is only worth 5. That's a lot smaller. And if I were to change that to a 9, if I were to change that to a 9, that would show that, just like with the 4, it's 1,000 times smaller. Okay, so that's really, really important. Okay, let's come back to our problem then. So if I'm trying to make the smallest possible sum, I don't want a big number. So where am I going to put my biggest digits? Am I going to want them to put them in a place where it gives a high value, or am I going to want to put them in a place that gives a lower value? So pause, just keep pausing the video and keep thinking about where those could be, keep practicing, trying it out, come back to me when you're ready. We'll talk a little bit more through. Okay, so let's have a look at this one. I have chosen these, right? These are my digits. Have I chosen the digits? Have I chosen to put the digits in the places that will give me the smallest total? Okay, let's have a go at doing it, shall we? So 4 plus 9. Well, I know that's nearly 10. So 10 add 4 is 14. It's 1 less, so it's 13. So I'm going to regroup. I'm going to put 1 into my tens, and I'm going to put my 3 into, I say my tens, actually, it's not my tens, is it? It's into my hundredths column. And I'm putting a 3 into the thousandths column. Right, okay. 8 add 3 add 1. Well, 8 add 1 is 9, nearly 10. So 10 add 3 is 13. Take 1 is 12. So I'm going to put regroup my 1 into my tenths column, and then I'm going to put my 2 into my hundredths column. I've used that one. Okay. Now I've got 2 add 5 add 1. 2 add 5 is 7, plus the 1 is 8. I'm not regrouping anything. Decimal point is really important. And then 0 add 1 is 1. Now, do you think that this is the smallest possible total that I could make? So we're thinking about the value of each of the columns. Okay, where would I need to put my biggest numbers? So pause and have a think about it. Have we got the smallest total there, or could you find smaller? Okay, right, let's have a look again, shall we? Okay, so I'm going to tell you that this is the smallest possible total that I can make. I've found it. I wonder if you found it as well. Can you? So even if you didn't find it, that's okay. I'm telling you this is what it is. So your job now is to write an explanation for why. Why is this number going to give me the smallest possible total? Okay, now you may have had this number. You might have had that. There are others that you could have. And that would also make the smallest possible total. So in your explanation, can you tell me, why is that the case? Why isn't it just one possible total? Right, so this is your first challenge. You've really got to explain it. So if you already found it, great, but you have got to explain why that makes the smallest total. So do that before you move on. Remember, this is making up the bulk of our lesson, so don't panic thinking, oh, I haven't got very much time and I need to get on. You don't. So we're really, really thinking about the in focus, and if that's all you do, that's absolutely fine. So take your time, really think about your explanation, think about the vocabulary you're using. So highest possible column, place value, tenths, hundreds, thousands. So that language all needs to come into your explanation. And we're not going to give you the explanation today because we actually want to see what you come up with on Tapestry. So once you've got the answer, you're going to pop it on Tapestry and we can have a look at it. Okay, so pause and get cracking on that. When you're ready, come back and we'll have a look at the next part of the question. Okay, so now we're going to look at the smallest possible difference. So this time we are getting rid of this one. We don't want that one, and we're focusing on this one here. Okay, so what do we need to consider? Would we do something similar, or is it a new strategy that we need to use? Are we still thinking about the place value? Does that make a difference? Is there anything else that we've learned over the last few days that are going to help us in our in figuring this one out? So pause the video, have a look at that, and see if you can have a go at some ideas. You may not get the answer straight away, but don't give up. This is all about lots of trial and error. So try a few and then come back to me. Okay. Now, it is really, really important that you can explain why you've chosen to place the digits where you have, okay? So once you've had a go, and I'm anticipating that in your book, I'm going to see lots of different, you having a go a few times. And as you have a go, you might learn something, and then you move on to the next one. You learn something else, which will help you to come to the smallest possible difference. Now, when we're thinking about the smallest possible difference, what we mean is we need the smallest gap between our numbers. So we want a really small amount, a really small gap between, in the answer, it's going to be a small amount, isn't it? Okay, so how small can we make it? So if you want, you can stay with me just for a moment and have a think about this. Now, I've got some digit cards, I've made some digit cards, and I'm going to drag them. So you can do the same. You might do this with Post-it notes, or just chop up a piece of paper into 8 parts and put these numbers onto each of them, these digits onto each of them. And then you can manipulate them. You can move them around, try them, maybe on a whiteboard. If you have a whiteboard, you can have a go at writing the answer, see if you can switch digits, that sort of thing. Okay, so for instance, I'm not just going to randomly put anywhere, because I know that I've learned something already, and I'm hoping that you've learned something from your first task, and it's to do with where I'm going to position them. So I don't want to give too much away, but I am going to think very carefully about where I position my 9, my 8, and where I position my 0 and my 1. Okay, so this is really hard because I don't want to give you too much. I want you to come up with the answer yourself. And in school, we would do loads of discussion and stop, start, have a think about this, try this. And it's quite hard, obviously, when I'm trying to do it in a different way. But I know that you'll give it your absolute best shot. So I don't want to give you any more than that. I'm going to leave you to work through that now. If you have come up with the answer, and you think, yeah, I feel really confident with that, and I know why. That's the whole point, is that you need to be able to explain how you got that answer, and why you got that answer, and why it makes the smallest possible sum, why it makes the smallest possible difference. If you've done that, you can have a look at the workbook. Now, I haven't attached it today. It's very similar to this, but be careful because the numbers are different. So you can kind of test your theory if you have got to the answer. You can test your theory by doing the workbook to see whether, yes, that is actually correct, by positioning them in the way that you have, whether that follows by doing it with different numbers. Okay. Now, if you really struggle with that and you think, I really haven't got a clue, I really don't know how to do it, and I know that you haven't necessarily got an adult at home with you that can help you all the time. So if you really struggle with that and you think, I just really can't do it, then you can carry on listening and we'll just have a little look at something slightly different. But if you can give it a go, and that's most of you should be able to try this by yourself without an adult. So give it a go. It doesn't matter if you don't get the right answer. It's about the process today. Okay. So good luck, guys, if you're doing that. If you think, no, I really, really don't get this, then you can stay with me and have a little look at this. Okay. Right. So this is for those of you who are finding it tricky, really tricky, and can't. You might find that after doing this, it makes a bit more sense. Now, make sure your answer is positive. We like a bit of positivity, don't we? But actually, what we mean by that is it can't be a negative number. It has to be a positive number, a whole number that doesn't go below 0. Okay. So I'm trying to find I've just changed it and I've taken out the decimals and I've just made it 2 two-digit numbers, okay, to make it a bit easier. So first of all, how about this one? See if you think that this is a possible answer. What do you think? Does that look like it could be a correct answer to what we're looking at? Right, hopefully you've realised no. It is no. Why is it no? What's wrong with it? Right, you can see that actually, if I take 89 away from 54, if I've got 54, I'm trying to think of something other than Smarties and chocolates. 54 pens, sorry. If I've got 54 pens and I try and take 89 away, I'm going to get to 54. I'm not going to have any left, and I still need to take some more away because I haven't taken 89 away. So that would mean it would be a negative number. So I can't have that. All right. So that's a first point. So your number on the top needs to be what? What do we know about the number on the top? Right, I'm going to change it to that. That doable? Can we do that? The number on the top here is still smaller than the number on the bottom in our ones column. Does that matter? I'm hoping that you're talking to me now, or you're thinking and you're writing your ideas down. Does it matter if the number in the ones column is smaller on the top than on the bottom? Or is it important when it comes to this column here? This is the one that matters, isn't it? As long as the tens column here is bigger than the tens column, the number on the bottom, still going to be okay. Right, okay, so that's one thing to think about. So we want to try and make the smallest possible difference between our numbers. Okay, smallest possible difference. I wonder which digits I might like to start with thinking about. Should we ever go at a 0? Now, I can't put a 0 in the top and a 1 in the bottom, can I? Because 0 take away 1 is going to give me a negative number. So could I swap those around, perhaps? Could I put the 1 at the top and a 0 at the bottom? Okay. What about if I were to put in a 9 in here and a 2 in here? What's the difference between those two? What's the difference between 2 and 19? If I were to start on 2 and I jumped up a number line and I got to 19, what would be the difference? Well, 9 take away 2 is 7. And 1 take away 0 is 1, isn't it? 17. Is that the smallest possible difference I could get, or can I go smaller? Can I make this number smaller? Right, okay. How about I don't change that? I leave that where it is, but maybe I have a little go at playing around with these numbers. Okay, so do I want to make this, well, I can't make this any bigger. What could I do with this? Do I want to make it smaller or bigger? Right, I'm going to stop there because I don't want to give you too much. So if you've struggled with the other one, have a little go at that. See how you get on with that one. And then if you do think, oh, I think I've got it, you could maybe have a go at moving on to doing a 3-digit number. Or you could maybe have a go at doing a ones and a decimal point and a tenths. So ones and tenths columns, rather than trying to do all of the numbers. So hope it goes really well. I can't wait to see what you come up with on Tapestry. All right, good luck, guys.